Hi guys, welcome to official chapter 2. What I've decided I'm going to do to make it a bit more structured is that we've got an official introduction and an official chapter 1, and so I'm going to prefix all of these the titles of the YouTubes with official chapter 2, and then I'm going to re-release them so that people can see them, and people that are subscribed will get notified of them in order. So what I'm trying to do is keep these videos down to 10 minutes and then have some hand histories directly after them within the same post that relate to the chapter. So hopefully it'll be a more structured way of learning. Now, people that have already seen some of these videos may have already seen the hand histories, but I recommend that you go with the process of starting off with the official introduction. Hopefully you've already read that, already viewed that, and then the official chapter 1, and now this is the official chapter 2. So the official chapter 2 is about, seems a good place to start, is going to be called being aggressive, okay, because that's fundamentally what we're doing. We're stepping up the aggression. And I had some good feedback from a good friend of mine. You probably know him, Andy Young, also known as Chicken Melt on Sky, and he gave me some really valuable feedback on about these videos, and some suggestions for some alterations that I can make, which I think will add more value to them. So I appreciate that, Andy. Thank you very much. So, okay, so we're going to be more aggressive. What's this mean? It means we're going to be opening wider, it means we're going to be 3-betting wider, and we're not going to be calling as much. Okay, so we've spoken a little bit about these marginal hands. Everybody knows what to do with the premium hands. It's easy to 3-bet those hands, but it's the marginal hands that we're talking about, where you're now having to decide whether you're going to 3-bet or fold them. So things to take into consideration, we spoke about table position. If it's early table position raise, you lead towards folding the marginal hands. If it's a later table position raise, then it all depends on what your opponent's style is. Okay, and we spoke about a traffic light system in the last chapter, where you label people as red, yellow, or green. Red for aggro, yellow for steady, and green for tight. So how do you tell if people are tight? And this is one of the recommendations from Andy about, that I didn't really explain, what constitutes a tight person, and I replied rather tongue-in-cheek, well, they fold a lot. So anyway, but just to reiterate that, what you want to be doing is getting an idea of what technically they call the VPIP, the voluntary puts into the pot. That's what they, with people that used to use HUDs, that's what they called it. But I don't want to get too hung up on technical terms. Basically, just notice what sort of percentage of time they're folding. And if they're folding a very large percentage of the time, then you can pretty much gauge that they're tight. If they're not 3-betting very much, you can gauge that they're tight. So, and also, if anything ever goes to showdown with these players, really notice sort of what's happening at the showdown, what hands they've had, and that applies to the tight players, the steady and the aggro, because that's all important information. So the traffic light system, I just want to explain it a little bit more, because we've got red, which is aggressive, but it doesn't really explain it enough. Okay, so I want to split that into 2 types of red, what I call red aggro 1 and red aggro 2. Now, red aggro 1 is an aggressive opener. He's raising all the time. He might 3-bet himself all the time, but when confronted with a 3-bet himself, he folds often. Okay, so that's like red aggro 1. He's a very aggressive player. He's open raising. He's 3-betting a lot, but he folds to 3-bets a lot. Now, these are ideal candidates for you to 3-bet against. Now, if you've got a red aggro 2, or categorised as a red aggro 2 player, then that's an aggressive player, but he's a bit sticky. It's a bit what we call sticky. So he calls 3-bets, he floats flops, and, these are not the best guys really at this stage to be 3-betting, because you're going to have difficult decisions on your bloated pot when he calls your 3-bet. when you've got marginal hands. I mean, obviously, if you've got a good hand, you've got pocket aces, you 3-bet, you want him to call. But in general, when you're trying to get folds from your 3-bets, avoid the red aggro 2s, the sticky aggressive players that call 3-bets, call raises, and float flops. So then with yellow, I call them yellow solid 1 and yellow solid 2. So yellow solid 1 is a very good all-round player. A good all-rounder that has a balanced range of calling, of 3-betting, of folding, and he does everything sort of in a balanced way. Well, what do you do with these when, say, when you've got a marginal hand and they raise on the button? Now, I would say against these opponents, you want to mix it up. You don't always want to do the same thing all the time. Sometimes you want to be folding. So we're still not calling, but sometimes you want to be folding. Sometimes you want to be 3-betting. And, to get a gauge for it. Now, what I would say is that you probably 3-bet with the higher end of your marginals. Now, remember, I defined marginals as medium and low pocket pairs, even hands like 6-7 suited at the bottom end of it, hands like King 10 suited, any sort of suited connector higher than an 8, rag aces, marginal hands, even as low as sort of King 8 if it's against an aggressive player, in the small blind or on the button, they can be considered hands that you can re-raise with. But you're really basing it on whether or not you can get 70% of folds. And I would say with all these hands, really, you're kind of looking to get 70% of the folds. Obviously, at the higher end of your marginals, then if you do get called, it might not be the end of the world so much. And the lower end of your marginals, that you're probably going to need to sort of hit to win if you get called, or to take it down with a c-bet. So in general, against the yellow solid ones, they are going to fold to 3-bets in their range, because they're going to have, which means they're probably going to fold 3-bets close on 70% of the time anyway, because that's about a sort of a good fold to 3-bet statistic in a way. Maybe not quite as high as that, but so you can still sort of 3-bet them. Now the other ones, the yellow solid 2s, is they call with good and marginal hands, but rarely raise. So if they've got a hand like King Queen, they might open raise with it, but they're not going to 3-bet with it. And in general, they're quite tight with their opening range. So against these players, you don't really want to be 3-betting them so much, because they're the type that's going to call c-bets. Now, call 3-bets and call your raises. So when you're, in general, as I said before, if you want to be raising against the tight players in the blinds and 3-betting against the red aggro ones, as I've defined them, the aggressive openers that fold to 3-bets a lot. So that's what you want to do. Now, when you've got a player green, I call them green tight 1 and green tight 2. Now, green tight 1 only raises with monsters and rarely calls. So when he raises, it's a premium hand, and he doesn't call very much. Now, these guys, basically, you want to be stealing their blinds, but you don't want to be 3-betting them. It's simple as that. That's the way that you play them. The green tight 2s, they're called a fair bit, but only will really raise with premiums. So if they call a bit and they're in the big blind, then you may not want to raise them too light, because they might call you. But having said that, they're also a type that will often fold to a continuation bet. So you can still raise really against both types of green type 1 and green type 2 players, tight 1 and green tight 2 players, when they're in the blinds. So what I'm going to do now is I'm coming up to the 10 minutes, which is my sort of like time slot, because I don't want people to get bored watching the videos. So I'm going to end this, and I'm going to put after this a few hand histories where I've played hands and I've 3-bet with marginal hands, or I've raised with marginal hands and continuation bet, and to give you an idea of this sort of practice working, out in the field, so to speak. So after this, there'll be a few hand histories, and in total about half an hour's viewing. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to release I was thinking of doing 2 lots of these every week. So that it means that the people that are subscribed should get an email message and they should be able to watch half an hour twice a week. And then hopefully they can keep up with everything and it'll be in a structured way. So look out for where it will say Stayorgo Poker Official Chapter 2, Official Chapter 3. And if you can follow those paths through, assuming that you've already watched the official introduction and the official Chapter 1, then it should take you through in a nice logical process where you can also see at the end of the videos hand histories that pertain to the topic that the chapter was about. So all the best, guys. I've gone over my 10 minutes. I mustn't get to 11. So good luck, guys, and I hope you enjoy the hand history reviews. All the best. Cheers.